Hey everyone, welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We're here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. You deserve to feel good. We all deserve to feel good. And here is a little video about what we do in the cannabis space as nurses. And then we're going to get started on our very special show. We're going to get started in just a minute. Partners in Health, here we come.
Change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship. And what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
It's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers.
There you go, growing in health, growing in cannabis, and that's what we're going to be talking about.
Tips, tricks, nugs, and hugs. Oh my goodness, that's like a Christmas sweater or something. Like we need like a adorable.
It is tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information on how you can live your best life with cannabis as medicine, right? So growing your health, growing in cannabis, and this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Hi, everyone. My name is Sherry Mack, and I'm the Chief Nursing Officer of Holistic Caring in the Green Nurse and Vice President of Bloom Hemp CBD. And I'm so grateful to be here. I'm a cannabis nurse, cannabis patient, advocate, activist, and a very passionate podcaster here to change the paradigm of healthcare. And I'm really excited to announce that this is my 8th year podcasting. It's been a long time. Green Nurse, living your best life. Yes, I started podcasting in 2018. When the National Council State Boards of Nursing came out with their guidelines that all nurses must have 6 essential areas of knowledge when it comes to cannabis as medicine. I started podcasting to share compelling stories of healing and to decrease stigma, since I too use cannabis as medicine. But before we get started on our very exciting show, we do have a little word from our sponsor, and I got to pull up my handy dandy little slide here, all about Bloom Hemp CBD. Bloom Hemp is sponsoring the show today. Bloom Hemp is a woman and nurse-owned national hemp and CBD supplier, leading with quality, safety, value, and patient-centered care. Bloom Hemp products are USDA organic, grown in the mountains of Colorado, and tested for purity, potency, cannabinoid, and terpene profiles. Bloom Hemp is also proud to offer a free nurse line. They have a pharmacist on staff when the nurses aren't able to answer the phone, and they have free emailed care plans. So please be sure to check out bloomhemp.com and enjoy Green Nurse for 10% off and free shipping. Thank you, Bloom Hemp. All right. And so we are going to get into it today. So cannabis nursing, if y'all haven't noticed, has become a specialty. And this is what I talk about all the time on the show. And nurses are truly making an impact on advocating for the safe therapeutic use of cannabis by teaching on the endocannabinoid system and how to optimize cannabis as medicine for health, healing, and wellness purposes. And as plant medicine nurses, our role extends beyond recommending cannabis and hemp products. We strive to provide alternative solutions for multiple modalities that support the endocannabinoid system, promoting the health, healing, and overall wellness. So growing cannabis at home can be an incredibly therapeutic experience, offering numerous benefits.
It's gardening.
Yeah, it's gardening, exactly. And today we're going to talk all about that. We have a PhD here to share her inspiring journey and story behind the creation of Grow It From Home. So Emily Gogol is a nationally recognized leader in the cannabis industry, heading the team at Infinite Tree, which develops and produces new cannabis varieties. And we'll talk about what cannabis varieties is. She's passionate about innovation. She works to develop the next generation of plants that benefit both commercial farmers and home gardeners. In 2020, she launched Grow It From Home, a company dedicated to providing cannabis plants to backyard gardeners across the United States while promoting education, access, and equity. And her work has been featured in the LA Times. Emily earned her PhD in biomedical science from UCSF, University of San Francisco, and was deeply involved in the community work in San Francisco. Recognized by the state of California for her leadership, she has founded 3 community organizations and 2 public parks. She currently lives in Applegate Valley, Oregon, where she manages her 23-acre organic farm and finds time to garden whenever possible. Welcome, Emily.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you here, and this is a really great show. Gosh, years ago, when I was with the other company that I was working with, there was another nurse that was growing, and Nurse Jody, we were doing little shows on Jody's Grow. And so, in growing, it can be so therapeutic. And
anything. I mean, I feel like every study I've ever seen, I wish I had the statistics in my head, but I know like recently the BBC did like kind of a feature piece on how good gardening is for you. Just gardening, whether you're growing, your own radishes or your own cannabis, is just beneficial for you as a person. And then let alone having it be food and medicine, right, just adds to that. So I feel like it's just so empowering to garden, whatever it is, by the numbers, and cannabis has that extra benefit because it's medicinal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, my first question is, you didn't wake up one day out of the blue and just say, hey, I'm going to start a cannabis grow it your own business.
No. So yeah. So you mentioned I did my PhD at UC, San Francisco, University of California, San Francisco. And I was in the research and development science community for many years. I actually studied drug development. I worked at Genentech and helped develop new pharmaceuticals. So I am a pharma, like I see it, to me, it's all medicine, like, whether it comes from a lab or from your backyard, it's really about results and safety for me. And I'm kind of like agnostic in that sense, but I'm kind of done both, I guess. I spent a long career in that, and I would have definitely been voted least likely to run a pot farm in high school. That would have been like totally, where I was at. So I was not a cannabis person before starting the farm. And, I was working in science, and my husband and I wanted to start a business together. And we looked at a bunch of different businesses. And we went to visit a friend's farm in Oregon, and we said, you know what? Cannabis is just getting legalized on the hemp side, the marijuana side. We think we could bring a lot of our skill set to this in terms of quality products. Probably back when you were working with your nurse friend who gardened, she probably always complained, oh, Sherry, I can't get good clones. The seeds I buy off the internet are total garbage, and they're so expensive. And they're telling me I'm supposed to grow in a closet and start seeds in a paper towels and need all this crazy stuff for cannabis. This makes no sense. And, kind of all that information that maybe your friend experienced as a backyard gardener, we face on the same side commercially as well, for the most part. Yeah. So that's kind of why we started Infinite Tree. And then a couple years in, literally folks started calling me and emailing me. I mean, like they literally got in touch with me through my commercial website saying, hey, I live in Maine, Michigan, Burbank, I need access. And can you help me? So I'm really a scientist who's a backyard gardener, urban green spaces advocate that happens to run a pot farm. So when people got in touch with me, I was just like, I can work with my gardeners again. And that's just, I can provide them with access, and they should have access. This is silly that they get, they should have more access, so that's how Grow It From Home started. So it's really my passion project in addition to the commercial. My commercial farm is my first job, and then my second job is getting plants and education to folks across the country. So that's really how we got started. It's
well, tell me about your relationship with cannabis. So prior, did you have a relationship with cannabis in high school, college?
No. Good point. So I grew up in a very permissive family in California. We talked about everything, drugs, alcohol, sex, rock and roll, and it was like not a thing because my twin sister and I were like, we've got other stuff to do. And it wasn't taboo. And I kind of, to be completely honest, like some of my friends definitely smoke pot, were into it. And I was just like, that's what they do after school. And I have to go to like swim practice and mock trial. And I want to go surfing on Saturday. So I can't just go hang out at Taco Bell. So I really only knew about it as a recreational thing that, kids did for fun. And I just didn't have the time, honestly, is how I looked at it. There was no stigma around it. My family talked about, LSD and peyote and stuff. And this, like they were very open about everything. So for me, it was just, I didn't have time. But as I got older and then met more people that had been using it for recreation, but also medicinal reasons, going into running the farm, I was like, hey, this industry needs help, like it needs better products. This is silly that things are not standardized. You can't really grow true from seed. Feminized material isn't really available. It's so costly. We really looked at it more from the logistics R&D kind of standpoint, which is why we started the commercial business. And then I gotta say, the last couple of years, working at it from a community standpoint is just blowing my mind, Sherry. The number of people I've met, first the people who called me initially, of course, but the thousands of people I've met since then that need this both recreationally and medicinally. I just feel like I have this really unique perspective on the industry as a gardener, breaking down the stigma and then providing people access. And it's just, now I can't imagine, how I wouldn't be doing this in a sense, because it literally grows in your backyard and produces so much for you as a flowering plant. And people really do need access. And I think it's so silly they don't have access. So for me, it's just very important work. So that's kind of how I approach the plant. I'm like,
yeah. So there's two things that a lot of people think is that it's hard to grow and it's very expensive. So let's dispel those myths.
The opposite. It's totally opposite. I sort of joke with our gardeners. I'm always like, I say, grow it like a tomato. Full sun, annual plant in your backyard. It's like a tomato plant. You plant it in the spring, it grows over the summer, you harvest it in the fall, and you're good to go. That's your little cycle, outdoors, full sun. And I'm like, hey, it's called weed for a reason. It's actually a very resilient, easy to grow plant as long as you treat it like an outdoor plant. If you tried to grow tomatoes in your closet, it would be a pain in the ass. I mean, if marinara sauce was illegal, I would be growing tomatoes in my closet, but I don't have to do that because I can buy tomatoes at Whole Foods. So it's cool. And now that you can grow cannabis in your backyard in like 32 states, I believe it currently is, like over half the states, right? So, grow it in your backyard. I mean, tomatoes you can buy at the grocery store. Cannabis, you cannot really buy pounds at the dispensary, right? It's going to be incredibly expensive. Whereas you can grow pounds legally in your backyard. So I'm like, hey, it's up to you guys. But in terms of ease of growing, tomatoes are harder to grow than cannabis. Cannabis is very easy. And cannabis flower is way more you're getting way more bang for your buck by growing it in your backyard than buying a dispensary when you can just get tomatoes at the grocery store. So I'm like, the decision is yours, everybody. But if you've got if you've never grown before, or you have one spot to put a plant, I think you're probably going to choose the cannabis plant over the tomato plant if you had to, but I'm always like, I put it to you guys at my workshops because it really is easier. You grow it like a tomato, but it's so much easier to grow. And I can go into details as to how that is, Sherry.
Cool. Well, so that leads to the next question. So, what is your biggest obstacle in helping folks grow it at home?
Misinformation.
There you go. And so the misinformation, let's just dispel that right away. What would you say are the top 5 misinformation?
The number one is that people think it's their fault when the plant dies. And that goes for all plants. First of all, I used to run, community parks and gardens. All of our volunteers, I'd say, to be a gardener, you got to kill a lot of plants. And I kind of start my workshops with who's killed a lot of plants, because as gardeners, we all kill plants. So like, that's just something people have to get over with. It's like not a big deal. Like
don't take it personally if you kill your plant.
Kill a bunch of plants. It's fine. It's going to happen. I've killed plants. You're going to kill plants. It's all fine. But the thing with cannabis is that, first of all, the clones that you often get from a dispensary are very unhealthy, unhappy plants. They're grown in rock wool. They typically have hoplite and viroid. They've been taken care of by a bud tender in a room for how many ever days. They're just not great plants. And that's just, if you were buying a tomato plant that was treated that way, it would be the same, basically. Right. Okay. So it's the plant that you're getting often. Second, seeds. Seeds in the industry, unfortunately, almost all of them are not produced with regulation, and they're honestly not good quality. They have a very low, what's called germination rate. You go to your favorite garden shop, right, Sherry, where you live, and you buy a packet of San Marzano seeds, and they're going to say 93% germination rate on them. And if you follow the directions on that packet, I bet they have like a 90-ish% germination rate. You know what I mean? Cannabis seeds that you order online, that's like unheard of. Okay. So it's just, they're low quality. And
so for the new people, let's talk about what germination is.
Yeah, sure. So what it means is when you get seeds and you start them following directions, they should grow. That's what it means. But people think because they buy these seeds online and they don't grow, and there's all this stuff on the internet about how like, oh, cannabis seeds have to be started on paper towels and soaked and licked. I've heard licked. People told me to lick the seeds. All these things. Boiled, one person told me. Like, it doesn't have, it's just terrible. It does not make it, they're shooting themselves in the foot. That's not how you start seeds. And cannabis is actually really easy to grow from seed, but you have to have quality seeds and you have to follow proper seed starting directions. Most of the stuff on the internet about cannabis is like crazy lore. No one starts seeds on a paper towel in the gardening industry. Like have little kids do in kindergarten to see like root development and stuff, but you don't start any other seeds that way. Normal veggie garden seeds, there's so much misinformation. So then their seeds, they spend all this money on clones or seeds, and then everything dies. And they go, well, it must have been my fault because I'm not a grow bro. Like the internet told me I have to be some canna gardener especial to like make this happen. And the reality is it's the exact opposite. Cannabis is one of the easiest plants to grow, but you have to have good seed and like follow good gardening. Don't follow the internet directions because they're awful. So those are the two main things. People think it's their fault and it's not. And the second is sourcing good materials. People think, they have to have some special setup or liquid fertilizer by the light of the moon, whatever, to grow good ganja. And that's just totally bonkers.
Yeah. So the first time, and I actually had 6 plants from a caregiver. He started them off for me. He had clones. Yep. And he gave them to me in little cups. And then I transported them over.
Cups are great. Cups totally work. We start other plants in cups. Cups are great.
Started in a little cup and then moved it over into a bigger container and then moved it over into a big gallon pot. And they grew nice and tall and beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. And I remember too, when I had Nurse Jody on and she was teaching, I remember one of the times when she discovered that one of her plants was male. And we had a close up of the male plant.
And why, and it's like, and why, I'm just going to charge my laptop here, I think.
And it was a feminized seed. So it did, what did it do?
It shouldn't have been male. If it was actually, that's the other thing. If it was actually a feminized seed, it shouldn't have been male. You know, that means they got something mixed up, and it's just silly to me because when I feminize seed, always
stresses, doesn't it hermy? Like if the plant gets too stressed, doesn't sometimes it grow secondary?
Oh, there. Hold on, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, can you still hear?
Oh yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes. So so say for example, someone plant started off as female and then started growing. So stressed out plants.
Yeah, stressed out plants are hermaphrodite. So cannabis, it's like 1 in 3,000 or 4,000, I believe. I don't remember the exact number, but it's like very rare unless you super stress out your plants. But genetically, they do have that ability. That's how we make feminized seed. We stress out the plant. So a female plant then becomes a pollen-producing plant. So my friend calls the original transplant.
The original transplant.
I love transplant. Get like the super pun. So that's how we make feminized seed. But you know, it turning like a full male in your garden, like that's because the seed is not proper, because they sold you feminized seed and it really isn't, or they mixed it up, or you know, something happened. So it's again not on her, it's on the person who supplied it. And you would never buy a packet of San Marzano tomato seeds and grow them and be like, oh, these are cherry tomatoes. Like, that's not what I purchased. Like, that would never happen, you know, ever. But in cannabis, it's like all the time. So it kills me. So things are getting better, but it's really, you know, like I said, the easiest plant to grow. And, you know, I make my husband start my tomatoes because they're a pain in the ass. You have to start them so early. The heat mat, the dome, the misting, they're weak ass little seedlings when they come up. You know, cannabis, it's like anytime 420 through Father's Day, above 55 degrees, start them like normal seeds, like broccoli, you know, for your garden, start them like that. And they just grow amazingly well. So no babysitting with cannabis seeds. So I make him do all the tomatoes. So they're so much easier. So much easier.
There you go. There you go. So here's another question. What is the biggest misconception about growing it at home?
That it's hard.
Okay.
And hard, like my plants will die. And also hard, like, how could I really produce quality flower? Like those guys on the internet and those growers at the dispensary, like they seem real smart and special and they're making, you know, and it's like, I mean, I'm not saying they aren't really smart or special by any means, but it's not this, like, it's very gate kept. It's like, oh, if you don't use the right genetics and the right soil and and you can't, if you're not in Southern Oregon or whatever, or Humboldt, you can't grow good weed, or, you know, and that's just crazy. Like if you just look agriculturally at the agronomics of this plant, like what it tolerates, what it needs, it can be grown like all over North America really successfully. It's called weed for a reason. It grows in ditches. It's called ditchweed in the South for a reason. And you just have to give it kind of what it needs as a full sun annual plant outdoors, and it will provide, you know, most of the quality of the flower really comes from the genetics. So proper breeding. You can do quite a bit with food, you know, nutrition, good sunlight and stuff, but like we have gardeners all over the United States, brand new gardeners to master gardeners, and they're growing amazingly quality, flavorful, fantastic weed. So it's just so gate kept. That's really the problem. So that's like the number one kind of thing. People think they just can't do it. It'll die or it won't be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. So you put on gardening workshops.
Yeah. We're actually funded by the USDA. So I wrote a grant. We have a value-added producer grant to do cannabis workshops throughout California.
Nice. So tell me the types of people, what kind of, you know, who comes to your gardening workshops?
Who doesn't come to our workshop, Sherry? I think, and that's like a really important thing. I'm really glad you asked that question, because a lot of business owners I work with and other folks are like, who's going to come to this workshop? You know, and I'm like, everyone, like, you know, it's really people from 20 to 90. And I'm not joking. The 20-year-old who has Crohn's disease and the 90-year-old who wants to get high, and vice versa. It's all across. We have people coming with their kids, like they're adult children, like kids, from all ages. We have people bringing their parents for like Father's Day, Mother's Day to a workshop. We have people, one person I just found out gifted their husband a workshop for his birthday. Nice. So he could go by himself and have a little quiet dad time on his birthday or whatever. It's all backgrounds, all socioeconomic backgrounds, ages, and all reasons. People want access to this plant for all reasons. There are a number of people who garden with us just to give it to other people.
Nice.
Just to support their community, to say, hey, I don't really use the plant, but my neighbor down the street and the person who runs the cheese shop, in my neighborhood, like it really helps them. And so now I grow it and then I kind of trade, or give it away, and I give it away, to them. It's not a business by any means. It's really just like, I grow it for my dad who's older and has arthritis. People tell that to me, or, they trade it among their neighborhood, bridge club or whatever, that kind of thing. Like, it's really, that was kind of amazing to me that people would grow it and it's also an easy plant to grow. So maybe it shouldn't be so surprising, but like people are growing it just to support their community also. It's just like,
yeah. So that's fun. So you think about book clubs, you're going to have a gardening club.
We're starting a gardening club. Okay. It's been in the making, Sherry. So, Penny Barthel, who wrote The Cannabis Gardener, who is a dear friend of mine, I give workshops with her. She started a cannabis garden club in her area in Albany, California. And we're doing these workshops and people are like, well, I went to the workshops. Well, when do we get to hang out again? Like, when do we, people come to our workshops and like trade phone numbers and like meet up, and like at harvest classes, people bring flower to like trade and give away with each other. Like, oh, you grew afternoon punch. I grew Berkeley Joyride. Can we swap quarter pounds? Like, let me get your number, like literally that's happening at our workshops. And for like the last year, I've been trying to find a place to do a monthly meetup, like $5 RSVP, just come hang out. We'll do an activity. And it's going to be the first Sunday of every month at Latinx with Plants in Los Angeles from 1 to 3. So it'll be in LA. And if anyone wants to start a cannabis garden club anywhere else, feel free. I haven't announced it yet through our whole email. It just happened like 2 weeks ago. But I'm happy to support. You live in Boston, want to do a cannabis garden club? I will send you supplies, freebies. Nice. Maybe I'll go live Zoom. Maybe I'll come visit sometime. But like, I was part of community gardens. Having a monthly work day or monthly, meetup is just so important for everybody. So I'm so glad we're starting that in LA. Penny's running the one in the Albany, Berkeley area, Northern California. And I hope to have, our gardeners sort of pick up the gardening pick up the trowel,
And you got to think of how fun that would be for people too, that are gardening, that are growing. Everyone's growing something different. And then they can come in together and bring in their harvest and share. People can make medicine and share, or make goodies or edibles.
Yeah, whatever. We totally have people. I just had one person actually in LA, I remember distinctly. She's like, oh, well, I'm really into making like bath and beauty, like topical products, but I only have a patio. And I was like, look, just grow this plant. It's not going to be optimal. I actually gifted her the plant. I was like, just here's a plant, and it's not going to be optimal because you're on a patio on like full shade. So I'm like, it's not going to be great, but you're going to get some flower. So I'm gifting it to you. But I was like, but come to our workshops in the fall. You're going to meet up with all the other gardeners and you're going to say, hey, I can make you salve, lotion, tincture, bath bombs. I just, let's just trade. And she was like, oh, I can do that. I do that already with other people with stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like this is a thing. Like, I'm like, still try and grow it. Like, you're going to see how easy it is, but like, I'm not going to sell you on it. It's not optimal for you, lady, but right. Come trade, because you're now I'm like, you're part of a garden community now, and you guys can trade stuff. Because other people are like, I don't really want to make the tinctures, but I can sure as heck grow the plants, right. So like people are already, I hear about this all the time at my workshops. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. And then gardening club is coming. That's really amazing. So a couple of things, too, for what is the most surprising thing you learned from your gardeners?
The most surprising thing.
Yeah, that was one of your questions. What is the most surprising thing you learned from your gardeners?
There's so many things now, Sherry. I'm just trying to pick one.
Top three.
Huh?
The top three. What
top
are the
three?
Yeah.
I was just so surprised first at how, because I grew up without any stigma around weed, pot, cannabis, Mary Jane, whatever you want to call it, reefer. And then I grew up gardening. Like, I didn't think there'd be that much stigma, but there is so much stigma. It's the most surprising thing I learned, how incredibly important it is, to your question earlier, to see other people doing it. Like, who's doing this? Who looks like me, doesn't look like me, age, whatever, economic background. Is it like, are other people at my Presbyterian church, going to be cool with this? And it turns out they are, you know what I mean? Like, It's like all that kind of stuff. Like, oh, this person uses it, and this person uses it to get high, or this person uses it just for medicine, it's getting through that stigma. The biggest thing I've learned from our gardeners in that sense is like how just empowering it is to be like, wow, we're all doing this. We can do this. It is not a big deal. It's a plant and we can have access to it, and people really shouldn't be treating us poorly because of it, or there's no shame and there's no shame in doing it. So that's kind of the most surprising thing. I was surprised at how many people were like, oh, I can't do, oh no, like, oh,
I know. I gotta be honest too, because it's interesting, because the longer that I've been in the cannabis arena, working it, cannabis and hemp, CBD, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's just so natural. It's just so normal. There's no stigma. We just like, it's just, topical, joint, gummy, whatever. Like, it's just, and a lot of people that are in those newer states, it's secretive and they're scared and they don't want people to know. And
which makes sense. It's been so malaligned, and there's so little education around it. There's so much misinformation and mystification. I'll say, I could bring this up. I sent a family friend to your practice recently, if you remember this.
Yes, I do.
And I'll just say that family friend, I didn't find out. It's a family friend of my parents. And I didn't know this till I was much older, but they like to smoke pot recreationally. And I just knew that somewhere in the back of my mind. And then when they got their diagnosis, I was like, oh, they should already be using this. Like, they already are familiar with marijuana for recreation. Like, this is going to help him with his treatment, And when I talked to his family, they were just like, oh, like, we had no idea. And like, well, I think he'd be open to it. Like, they were even hesitant, like,
they were very hesitant.
Yeah, but even though, like, lifelong, like, it's fine, he likes to smoke pot on the weekend, kind of something dad does, kind of thing. They were just like, so, hesitant and shocked. And I'm like, oh my God, that was enlightening for me this last couple of weeks. I was like, wow, we need to do so much outreach education in so many communities, because even the people that are comfortable with it recreationally may not even realize, like, oh, for pain relief, for nausea, for inflammation, even though it has gotten a lot of press with cancer therapies, right, for nausea and epilepsy and kids and stuff, they're still like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I can smoke it to get high, but I don't know if it'll help with my appetite during chemo, kind of thing. It's like,
well, then you got to show them the study that Marinol was created in 1985, synthetic THC for chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting.
Right, exactly. But it's like, these are people that are already like, know how to roll a joint and like get high on the weekends. And they're like, wait a minute, I can use this as medicine. I'm hesitant, So it's just interesting to me. I'm not saying, not curative, but like palliative, for stuff. And there's just so much education we have to do. And that's why I'm just so glad there's organizations, like yours and others, because God, there's only so much I can do as a gardener. I'm just trying to get people to grow the plant. I feel like, honestly, growing the plant, it's kind of like, I always think of the study, and we'll see if it ever happens in cannabis. But when I was running community garden, doing that kind of work, community garden work, I know they said it was like, kids who are like associated with vegetables, like have to grow them or like plant seeds in class and like talk about the life cycle of veggies and stuff like that. they're, depends on the study, but they're just so much more likely to eat their veggies and be able to eat them, to try them, to not be afraid of them, because they just have like a familiarity with them. And I'm like, ooh, cannabis, like, even if, like just gardening it gives you that familiarity and makes it so destigmatized and so it's less scary. Gardening a plant is so different than walking into a dispensary, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I just feel like if we could just, get everyone to adopt a cannabis plant, whether they smoke it or not or whatever, like just grow it. That'll just end prohibition, like right there, because people are like, oh,
and then
it's
the
just
learning.
a plant.
Yeah. And then just something about the being around the plant, even in general. I mean, you must even feel that having 23 acres of cultivation.
Oh, well, but it's like, I have to say, like, one of my plants, I just like plants. I'm a gardener, first and foremost in that sense. But like, I remember my grandma, and there's silly video of her after visiting my farm. She's very conservative, Catholic, 90-year-old. And she was like, oh, the smell. She was like, oh, the smells so fruity, like hibiscus. She's like, oh, I could wear this to church. I wonder if the priest would know. Like, oh, it's just so nice, And I I used to send her plants every year just to grow on her patio, and she'd have her door open at night because it smelled nice. The stuff that we grow smells, it depends on what you want, but raspberry and hibiscus or cherries, sweet, like moonflower kind of bellflower, and like night smells, like, it's just a beautiful plant. It's so showy. It's like sticky big flowers and can smell like raspberries and have pink pistils. It grows to be 5 feet tall in a season. I mean, this should be sold at like Home Depot as an annual ornamental. I mean, like, if you just took away everything else about the plant, it's like it would be a summer fragrant hedge for your backyard, focal specimen piece for your English garden, because it's this like beautiful, crazy, structural, stinky, in a good way, plant. You could get to smell like skunk, of course, but you can also get to smell like raspberries or grape, or oranges. So it's like, it makes all the good smells too. So I think from an ornamental standpoint, it's just a beautiful plant, easy to grow, water wise, tolerates heat, tolerates cold, high winds. I mean, it's so much easier than hydrangeas. I mean, in that way, like hydrangeas, you forget to water your hydrangea, that plant is dead in a hot summer. Your cannabis plant comes right back. Totally fine.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So what is the hardest thing about your job, would you say?
The regulations.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was gonna
say. The laws. I mean, it's just silly. It's just so silly. Like, we run into it. We're USD organic certified. So we jump through all those hoops for shipping plants, for producing the CBD flower. The laws change all the time. It's just advertising, like doing any kind of advertising, banking. I mean, it's just my website. Like, I can't list on my website that we ship plants. Like, it has to be like a hidden link that I just send people.
Well, let's go to your website and take a quick peek. Hold on here.
Yeah, you can order seeds. And it's not that it's illegal. It's just our current payment processor. There's no law against it, but like, they've just decided that it's too risky to advertise plants. So they don't allow us to advertise plants. So you can go to I send out the link to people that's like product/plants, and then they can go there. But like, I can't advertise it. And it's just, it's not even a law. It's just because there's so much, difficulty around all the laws with cannabis that people are extra cautious. Like, well, there's no law that says you can't do it, but we're a little worried. So like,
right. Tomatoes compared to cannabis. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is great. And then this is your shop. So shop now.
Yeah. So if you go to, you'll see Bloom Hemp, like, because
there you go. Lovely.
I fully endorse, that's part of why we sell CBD flower, to be honest, on our website. People got in touch with me and they're like, hey, I can't wait for harvest. Like, I cannot wait for harvest what can you send me now? And I'm like, well, legally I can ship you CBD. So, okay, I'll start doing that. Say like with Bloom hemp products, it's like, well, do you not want to make your own tincture? Do you want something standardized? Do you want something more shippable? Do you want to send it to a friend who's maybe a little like, doesn't quite want your homemade brew and want, like there's so many reasons to have pre-made products and grow your own.
They have they have the pre-made products. Well, they learn how to grow their own.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why the Bloom hemp is first and foremost on the product page.
That's lovely.
Yeah. And then we've got the seeds, good resources, books. We've got stuff for dogs because you can make your own CBD dog treats. So CBD in veterinary medicine is also quite large. Nice. And people were saying, hey, I'm paying through the nose at, Petco and the vet's office for these CBD treats. And I was like, well, you can make your own CBD treats for your pet. You can make your own dog cookies, add CBD. So we provide that at a low cost for folks. Nice. But it's mostly about the seeds and the plants. So we ship plants and seeds nationally.
Nice. This is a beautiful website.
Thank you.
Lovely. I grow tomatoes, peppers, and hemp and cucumbers. Yeah. I love that. So this is an absolutely lovely website. So she's got a lot going on. Grow It From Home is the main site with her products, her events.
Yeah, and you can see that video. That's the baby plants. So we ship in a 3-pack. And that's Adrian, a friend of mine with his mature plant in Southern California, looking all adorable with his plant. Ladies, this is at the Ferry Market building in San Francisco. They were buying plants at the Ferry Market building, a prestigious, farmer's marketplace. But yeah, they ship in a little cardboard box from my farm to you.
That's amazing. You've got testimonials, resources, contact us, shop now. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Good work.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's been, and getting the grant has been a big part of that, So.
Yeah. So I was going to just ask you too, what is one type of cannabis you'd recommend growing for a new gardener, for people that are new?
Yeah. So honestly, go to our website, buy our seeds, or order plants and I ship them to you. I've grown material from all over the world because I'm a researcher. So people actually hire me, like they have $50,000 in seeds from, all over the world. And they say, Emily, I need you to characterize this seed bank, pull clones for this, for that, breed, blah, 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 all this stuff. So I've done it. And I will say all that stuff is fine, but like, it's just not usually a great you're very unlikely to get good terpenes and bud density from that little pack of seeds that you ordered. I can recommend our company and Humboldt Seed Company.
There you go.
And that's pretty much it. So it's not really like the type of cannabis. It's all cannabis sativa. It's all full sun annual plants. I would say within the sort of type of cannabis, like the product is important. So Humboldt Seed Company or Grow It From Home, first of all. And then second, know if you want to grow for CBD or THC. Mm-hmm. You have to make that decision. It's like, do you want red apples or green apples, like whatever, know what you want. And then feminized seed. It means, if you're buying from us, it's all feminized. Humboldt has both in their quality. But so if you have to go with another company for whatever reason, look for feminized because you don't need the male plants. And it's all, if you're growing with us or Humboldt Seed Company, it's all easy to grow, great plants. That's really the main thing. The problem is with almost all the other companies, it's just the plants are floppy. They break branches. They were not bred to be grown at scale outdoors. The work was not done to make a good agricultural product, unfortunately, for most cases. So the easiest thing to do is to start with us and then go from there.
Right. Very good. Yeah. So just for the new viewers that are new to this as well, why would you want a non-feminized seed to grow?
To produce pollen. Because you want to sell artisanal cannabis pollen, I don't know, or to produce your own seeds. And I breed 120 different cultivars, so crosses, let's say, of cannabis a year for like the last 5 years. I can tell you it's rolling the dice. If you cross fire with fire, you're more likely to get a good end product, but you have to test that end product to know it's good. And eight or 9 times out of 10, it's not. It's not uniform. across a population. Like when you start those San Marzano seeds, every plant is San Marzano. When you do that with cannabis, one of those plants might be good and the other 9 might be total garbage. So like, that's not a good seed packet. That's like, you got one good plant and then 9 dinkers, like
9
dinky plants. So
9 dinkers.
So yeah, so there's no reason to have pollen as a backyard gardener. I'm working with one lady in LA who's producing seeds for her parrot. So she wants to make her own seeds for her parrot. Like that's a reason. Yeah, I guess it's really good parrot food. You know, hemp hearts, like Costco, you can buy hemp hearts. They're expensive and they're really good for you. I mean, you could manufacture your own hemp hearts, but like, are you milling your own flour? Like,
No.
you know, I mean, so like you can. I'm not saying you don't, you know, I'm not saying, ooh, don't do it. But like, you know, so I just say, hey, there's no reason for the pollen. Nothing so far that I know of has been what's called sex linked in cannabis, like that's on the male chromosomes in cannabis. So we're not missing out on anything male in our final product. And pollen production, there's some lore around having a male like helps the female plants produce better flower. I've never seen any data around that. I think it's all lore.
Yeah, I think
to
it
be
is
honest. Yeah. So there's no
plant
reason
needs to be cared for and tended to and watered and nurtured and spoken to lovely.
Those are much, yeah. It's honestly, I think it's dudes who just want to feel like male plants are important. And I mean, I'd be the first person if male genetics. I'm a scientist. I mean, I just look at the reality of what it is. Like I'd be, yep, nope, we need male plants. They do all these things. I'd be like, great, let's do it. You know, but it's just not the case. So.
So I do have one other question that's not on the question list.
Oh, okay.
And hopefully it won't surprise you, but since you're a gardener, I think you'll know. Say, for example, I wanted to create a new strain, right? I wanted to create the green nurse strain. and I wanted to create, and I wanted it to be a blend of, you know, to have a CBD, CBG, like be well-rounded with the entourage effect of having some, you know, not high THC, not low THC, but middle of the ground THC with some CBD and CBG in it.
Yeah.
Like, how would you go about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will say that I am not as up on the current state of cannabis genetics as I probably could be, but generally how it works for the material I'm aware of is that the way you accumulate CBG is by not having the cannabinoid synthases downstream that process it into CBD and THC. So you can think of it like, here's the stuff that makes cannabinoids, right? And then it goes through the pathway and becomes THC or CBD, depending on genetics. So the genetic component of the plant can make CBD and or THC or both in appreciable quantities. It depends on the type of synthases it has. So synthases have natural variation in the plant population, and that's how you can get 4 to 1s and 2 to 1s and 1 to 1s and 3 to 1s, right? So harvest time, like when you harvest, actually affects that ratio as well. So I think a little bit. So that's very like, we kind of have that. But in terms of blocking the pipeline so that we end up with a lot of CBG and THC and CBD, I don't know of anything naturally occurring that really does that appreciably. So some cultivars might have a little CBG still in them, but it's very, very small because honestly, those synthases downstream of CBG, like the ones that split to CBD and THC, you would call them hungry, I guess. Like they really want to like, you know, they want to grab those molecules and make them into CBD and THC. So if they're around, they're going to do it. So I'm not aware of naturally any populations that would make it that balanced. Yeah. But you can always mix in CBG flower. You know, a lot of our gardeners grow a CBG plant.
Yep.
And then they grow a CBD plant. And then they grow a THC plant.
And then you just take it all together.
And it works for you. And that works because 3 plants is totally doable for harvest. It's totally doable in a backyard. And you get, let's say, a pound a plant. So you got 3 pounds at the end of the day that's dry and packed in your mason jars or your Mylar bags. And that's your pantry for the year. How could you, I mean, that's kind of like perfection. Yeah. So that's normally how you do it. But if you want to create the Green Nurse cultivar that was very balanced, THC, CBD, had 4% terpenes that were high in, you know, things like osamine, beta caryophyllene, guaiol, that's a very doable, natural, I hate to use the natural, but like kind of what's readily available biology in cannabis. We don't have to do any, gene editing or anything crazy, do some big molecular genetic search to like match parent A with parent B. And, like it's really in my library already, Sherry. I'm sure I have something that could fit your bill. So I would love to know what your favorite terpenes are, your top 3 terpenes and your ratio of CBD to THC. And then we'll totally release that cultivar for you. No problem.
I think I can tell you, I'm a big fan of 1-to-1.
A 1-to-1?
Yep. I do like a 1-to-1 CBD THC. I love beta caryophyllene. I am a big fan of limonene and pinene.
Okay. Penny's pine would maybe work for you. Penny's pine is named after Penny Barthel, actually. Nice. If I remember correctly, it is a 1-to-1. I'll have to double check. I know our rye high is a 1-to-1. I think Penny's pine is also 1-to-1, and it's very high in limonene, terpinolene, pinene. I believe beta caryophyllene is also high in it. I'll have to check, but it has that like terpene, like not terpene, like turpentine, like that kind of piney earthiness to it with a lot of citrus, but not pine sol. It's still very balanced. It doesn't go pine sol. I think that would be something we have. So Penny's pine would be you should try Penny's pine. And then we should find another one that we can name after. Maybe I should have called it Sherry's pine. Maybe you and Penny could I'll develop a second one that's more to your taste. And then we'll go from there. I'll cross Penny's pine with something else. And then we'll eventually get to Sherry's, Sherry's pine or whatever.
Sherry's dream, not Blue Dream, but Sherry's dream.
Yeah, Sherry's dream. Hey, I mean, that's the thing. The names are it's really whatever you make it. I would love to do that. And, cannabis is such a chemical factory of deliciousness and medicinalness, right? Like all the flavors and aromas and everything. So we really can sort of conjure up all the good things if we just do the time to do the breeding work. And like, that's what I'm doing. So happy to do that. Yeah. But yeah, 1-to-1s. It's funny. I was at we had a big event in Los Angeles, and I was chatting with some folks, and they're like, well, why would I have CBD? Why would I want a 1-to-1? And a woman behind us actually piped in. She's like, oh girl, she was like, it mellows your high. It makes it so much better. She was like, oh, you don't even, she was like, just wait. Like, you got to try it. She was like, she said, smoking her joint, like telling us. I was like, she said that. I was like, oh, she just said that better than I could have ever, like, yeah, like I don't actually smoke, but like, it was just like, I feel bad always giving the advice, right? Because I'm like, I'm not the know-all of everything, right? But to have someone chime in and be like, oh, this is why you want CBD. Like, oh, yes. It turns out she used to be a bud tender. She's like a reviewer, I think, for High Magazine. I just didn't even know. She just was at the party and just piped in. It turns out she's like a very, so it's just funny. People in the know realize like having CBD in there helps.
Having CBD. So when I first started off on my cannabis journey, it was all about THC and high THC. And granted, it gave me the relief that I needed, but it wasn't until I folded in CBD that I started to see better results, better, longer acting results, and able to really come off of the pharmaceuticals. The THC was wonderful, I'm not going to lie, but it was the CBD that really balanced it out. And you don't really need as much THC as you think you do. And that's the other thing. And over time, when patients or consumers are taking just THC, from a scientific standpoint and physiological standpoint, that causes a down regulation in cannabinoid receptors. You stop producing as much of your anandamide molecule. And the goal is what? Systemic homeostasis among all systems, right? We want to have balance among all systems. So if you throw something at your body too hard, too much, too soon, keep doing it over and over again, you're going to have a result that's not optimal. So CBD balances it all out.
And it's like, right? What's the downside? I mean, it's not like,
everyone thinks, and that's the other misconception, oh, CBD is going to ruin my high. No, it's not. It's going to allow you to enjoy cannabis much longer, because the more you do THC, the more your tolerance goes up, and the more and more you need to reset your receptors.
Well, like the lady who spoke up behind me at the party, she was like, oh, it's going to be such a better high. Like immediately without a pause, she's like, oh, excuse me, better high. You're going to have a better high. Let me tell you, like, it was like immediate, like, oh, why? Oh, you don't even know. It was like so adamant. And so I think that's like a big thing too, is just helping people get comfortable with it. But honestly, it's like, yeah, grow a CBD plant, grow a THC plant, mix to your liking in your whole flower vape or your tinctures or your edibles. And like, it just makes such a huge difference to people. So yes, I definitely advocate for the people who are CBD only, like add a little THC, and the people who are THC only, add a little CBD. And then if I can convince them to grow a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-4, then I like, but usually those people are already, there's no convincing. Like if they're down for a mixed ratio plant, they're already in the know. They're like, oh, have that. Yes. And it smells like, cardamom and pumpernickel bread, and it's called Rye High. We've got one called Rye High that's like pumpernickel bread and cardamom and like warm yeasty dough. We have another one that's called banana box cake because it tastes and smells like banana box cake. So it's like, what's not to like about that? I mean, it's not like I'm like, hey, this tastes terrible, but it's really good for you. I'm like, this tastes amazing and it's probably good for you, so you should try it, So
yeah. Yes. Well, gosh, this has been such an educational show. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. I heard you did an amazing webinar for the American Cannabis Nurses Association, teaching the nurses how to grow. That's really important. Got some really good feedback on that. And you're a sponsor for the American Cannabis Nurses Association, which is greatly appreciated. Cannabis nursing is a specialty, and nurses are truly advocating for the safe therapeutic use. I was going to pull up my book, but I don't know what I did with it. So I usually pull up a book and share it.
And I'll say one of the other things that we didn't talk about from a gardening perspective is abundance. Because you will now have an abundance of cannabis when you grow even one plant. Okay. Like I said, a pound plus. Okay. And it goes from being so scarce and expensive to being abundant where you're giving it away, like we talked about. And I think that's just a total mind-blowing concept for people who have never gardened before. Like people who are gardeners are used to having too much zucchini, but no one really is used to having too much cannabis. But once you start gardening it, you're like, oh, I have too much, and it's just so big for people to have access and to be able to share. The other thing that, and I'm sure you've talked about this in other episodes if we have time, but the raw form of cannabis, the acidic form, like when you're making your own flour, you have so much of the raw form, right? That you can make into your own products that are the raw form and get that benefit. So it's like you can start using it as an herb. You can do it savory. You can do it sweet. You can smoke it. You can put in a tincture. You can use it raw. You can use it decarboxylated. You can make it as a salve. You can put it in your, focaccia bread as a herb, seasoning. It just becomes this whole different thing and access. So recently
one of the fun things that I remember with Nurse Jody years ago is when she was cultivating her plants, and we took the biggest fan leaves, and what we did with the fan leaves was we made have you ever made kale chips? So kale chips is you take kale.
Yeah, that sounds bitter, Sherry.
But it wasn't bad with olive oil. So the fan leaves with olive oil, salt, and pepper in the oven. It wasn't bad.
I just learned something new from you. We have gardeners that use them for steaming.
There you go.
And we have gardeners that use them for juicing. They'll actually grow a plant just to juice it because they're really into green juices. And like in August, all your other green juicy plants like spinach and broccoli are just done, right? Yeah. But in August, you can still pull the newer leaves from your cannabis plant in July and juice them. So they actually harvest to juice over the summer and make and then put in the freezer as well for the year. So, but wow, cannabis leaf chips. I'm gonna mention that to some chefy friends. See, maybe we should look into that. I look forward to sharing about it.
You can actually make them with olive oil, salt, and pepper. You can add different spices to them.
Nutritional yeast flakes, I bet, is probably delicious.
Yeah. So there's a lot to do. And this has been an absolutely wonderful podcast, Emily. I'm so glad that you came on. You're doing such great work with Grow It From Home.
Yep.
Grow It From Home. Emily, Grow It From Home. In the show notes, you'll see I have all of the links to Emily's LinkedIn, her Facebook, her Instagram, her website, her shop, etc. So you can all take a peek at there. And we encourage you all to grow it from home. There is something really beautiful about growing cannabis plants and cultivating your own and having that harvest and that abundance, like you said.
Yeah, they're stinky. Give it a go. It's fun. It grows like a weed, really. Like, try it out.
Yeah, sounds great. So thank you so much for coming on. Don't hang up. We're just going to end with a little video. And remember, everyone, what it's all about. It is truly all about living your best life and helping others do the same. Make sure you visit Emily Gogol, Grow It From Home, at her website. And we will see you all next time. And I'm going to put on my handy dandy little video. And this is truly about hope and inspiration for growth and healing.
Thanks for having me, Sherry. I look forward to sharing a bowl with you of cannabis chips soon.
Sounds good. I love it.
We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses Group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.